Welcome to Vape News Radio, the voice of vaping. In each show, we share the latest about regulations and things you need to know, plus upcoming conferences and fests, along with interviews with the movers and shakers in this fabulous vape space. Are you looking to get into this ever-expanding marketplace? Do you want to master this industry? Listen up as Norm Bauer, the vape mentor, shares it all. And here's your host, Norm Bauer.
Hello and welcome to Vape Radio, the voice of vaping, and this is show number 77. I'm Norm Bauer with Vape Mentors, and today's show is sponsored by Perfect Vape. Are you a vape store always looking for the latest mods on the market? Welcome to Perfect Vape, one of our supporters here on Vape Radio. Few distributors can claim that they have the largest hardware inventory in America, but Perfect Vape really does. They've been around since 2013 and they can really deliver the goods. What are you looking for? How about the Joytech AIO? What about the Sigelei T150 touchscreen? They also offer their own Perfect Vape liquids at tremendous prices, available in 350 flavors and all sizes. And they carry flavor concentrates from TFA, FW, Capella, and Flavor Art. They also carry full product liability for your protection, but inventory is where they really shine. They strive to deliver every product at the lowest price, even direct prices from overseas. Bold claims? No doubt, but they're willing to put their money where their mouth is and guarantee that if you can find a lower price after buying from them, they will credit you back the difference. In all these years on Vape Radio, we've never had anyone stand behind a claim like that. Visit them at perfectvape.com. Use coupon code VAPERADIO and get a 5% discount and let them prove that they can stand behind their claims. We are also still offering free webinar classes on how to open a vape shop. We cover what you need to know about regulations, locations, size of your shop, and inventory. If you are not on our mailing list, visit vapementors.com to sign up. Well, the other shoe has fallen. The FDA has spoken, and it means what? The end of the world as we know it? Business as usual? Do we even know? This intro is going to be very short since I don't want to tease you or waste your time. Instead, we're digging right in now as we interview attorney Phil Daman, a nationally recognized FDA legal authority, on what these new regulations say and what they don't say. Phil will also be joining us for a live Q&A this week, and since this is time sensitive, you can visit vapementors.com for more information. Let's dig in. Here we go. Welcome back to Vape Radio, the voice of vaping. This is Norm Bauer with Vape Mentors, and as we all know, the new deeming regulations just recently came out, and we have on the telephone right now Phil Daman. And Phil is an attorney that is, I'm going to say, kind of behind the scenes. I had seen his name before. I'd actually never spoken with him until a few days ago, but come to find out that he has a long and industrious history in the vaping industry. So, Phil, I'm not going to sing your praises. I want you to sing your own praises. So, welcome to Vape Radio, my friend.
Hi, Norman. Thanks for having me.
All right, so you are an attorney in the vaping industry, and where are you primarily based out of?
Primarily based out of Massachusetts and Boston. We have 5 offices around the country. We also have offices in Los Angeles, New York, Philadelphia, and we're certainly in Washington, D.C. quite a bit.
Very nice. And do you deal exclusively or primarily with vaping laws and e-cigarette laws?
I'd say a good 80% of my time is spent on regulatory affairs, intellectual property matters, and contract matters involving the vapor industry, whether it be for manufacturers, distributors, or retailers, both in the United States and abroad.
That's awesome. Well, obviously, we're here to talk about the deeming regulations, but before we get to that, I'd love for you to share a little bit of your background and history, because come to find out that you have been involved with the vaping space for quite a few years and helped actually found Safada. So if you could kind of give us a little thumbnail sketch of how you got into vaping, Phil, and what you've kind of done over the last couple of years, and just kind of bring us up to speed. And then we're going to do a deep dive into, all the stuff that's been going on over the last couple of days, which, of course, is been very, very challenging for both of our schedules, especially for yours, because you're jetting back and forth all over the country dealing with all these issues. So tell us a little about where you came from and how you got to where you are right now.
So my experience in the vapor community began in 2011. One of our law firm's clients who had come to us through the entertainment space, and we do a lot of work with Hollywood talent, comic book writers and artists, and various clients who are production companies that produce videos and movies and television shows had come to us because they were investing in technology and investing in companies that were in the vapor space. And they were getting less than kind letters from state government officials, including the Attorney General of California. So we first began researching these issues in early 2011, and then were able to provide some guidance and help and effectively work with state governments to explain that these are technology products, not tobacco products, and that they were being confused by regulators and various enforcement agencies as tobacco products, that they were not, in fact, cigarettes. They were, in fact, technology products, again, not tobacco products. And we had a lot of success with those arguments, both from a toxicology standpoint and able to show what the products contain, what the relative risks are compared to cigarettes and other tobacco products, including smokeless products, versus vapor products, which again are completely different than tobacco products. We then began working with different folks in the vapor community at the state and local levels to work with city councils to help educate them and engage them, as well as federal legislators to help them better understand how they could become public health champions by better understanding this technology, which has the potential to save millions of lives across the globe. So we've been in touch with the World Health Organization for many years. Our office speaks with different folks in Washington, D.C. Certainly, we've worked with clients and come with them and assisted them with their meetings at the Office of Management and Budget. And of course, we replicate this kind of service at the local level in states and city councils. And quite some time ago, I'd met some folks interested in working on a trade association. And when SFATA had only one or two members, we were asked to lend a hand and help. And I'm very proud to say that with the great talents of the folks over at SFATA, its current board, Cynthia Cabrera, and many of those people who worked tirelessly to make SFATA what it is, over the course of 4 years now, SFATA has become the largest trade association in the world. And although I don't have time to volunteer for SFATA in the way I used to, I was very proud to serve as its CEO and its president for many, many years.
Good for you, man. Well, thank you for putting all that into a nice, easy soundbite to digest. And, the way you explain it, when you talk about the fact that vaping is not smoking, vaping is a technology product, hearing you share your words that we all understood and all understand in the industry to be true, it just blows my mind why the regulators, why the government, why the FDA can't quite get that message. So let's talk about the deeming regulations. Obviously, we've been waiting for these final deemings to come out for almost 2 years since the initial ones about 2 years ago. So what came out? Was it a surprise? Was it a shock? Was there anything there that you were not expecting?
Unfortunately for our office and many of the folks that we deal with and we consult, this was not a surprise. We've known for quite some time that the agency would take a very heavy hand with this. We understand the agency's rationale. We disagree with it from both a public policy and, most importantly, a legal framework. We don't believe the agency is authorized to act the way it's acted with respect to vapor products in this way. But no, it was not a surprise and something that we've been expecting for the better part of 4 years now.
And like you, I was not surprised either, but yet my phone and my email's been blowing up with people asking me, what do I think, as you have been as well. So, there's a couple of timetables that I really want to talk about, because as we're recording this right now in May of 2016, there's certain events that have to happen or should happen over the next 90 days, over the next 12 months, and the next 24 months. So, Phil, if you could kind of walk us through what are the most critical time periods that people should be aware of or concerned of if they are, one, bringing a product to market, or two, if they already have a product out there or a shop out there right now.
Sure. If for anyone who's seen the deeming regulation, the regulation itself, the final rule, is 499 pages. That's a lot for folks to digest in the last 24 hours. So I think if we limit it to the three major timelines that we see, I'm happy to share that. And also, please keep in mind, a lot of people have not begun yet to talk about the guidance documents. The guidance documents are additional documents, and as we always say in regulatory law and regulatory affairs, the devil is in the details. So people should be aware that the final rule as published is really just the beginning. The guidance documents, which are also now available, have additional information that we should really review and consider. And there will be other documents that come out throughout the course of time with additional guidance. So this is not really the end. This is really the beginning of an increase in regulation that needs to be addressed both from a regulatory affairs standpoint legally, and most importantly, it needs to be addressed through effective engagement with government by consumers and by shop owners, distributors, retailers, both here in the United States and overseas, including our friends in China. So to answer your question, the most immediate deadline that people should be aware of is that 90 days from the date of publication on the Federal Register, this particular regulation will go into effect. So it will be published on the 10th of May. And if my calendaring is correct, that means the rule as finalized will become effective on August 8th, 2016. So August 8th, 2016 is when the rule will become effective. So that's important because there are a few things that you want to be aware of come August 8th, 2016. The first is that, of course, the law will go into effect. So this is important for a few different reasons. It doesn't mean that you have to file a pre-market approval application or substantial equivalency application during that time. But what it does mean is that the clock starts ticking as to when those deadlines become due. So the law goes into effect August 8th. Then,
before we move to the next, and the persons or companies that it really affects right now is someone who is looking to put a product on the market. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have obviously the consumer market that's listening to the show right now, as well as the business market that's listening to the show right now. If you are looking to get a product on the market, whether it be an e-liquid or a hardware piece or something like that, do it now before August 8th, because it's going to be a lot easier to have it grandfathered in. And again, we're using grandfathering here in a different context than the official grandfather date. But the bottom line is that if you are going to be coming to market, do it now, because if you do it after the fact, it's just going to be that much more onerous to do. So I kind of wanted to put that in perspective, Phil, because there's a couple of companies I'm working with right now that have been ready to launch a hardware product, and now the clock is ticking. They have 90 days approximately to get that sucker on the market, and you only have to sell one. You don't have to quote-unquote sell a whole boatload of them, but you do have to get it on the market and make sure that you can document the fact that it is a product that's on the market for sale. Is that correct?
That's correct. So you want to make sure that anything that you're considering introducing into the marketplace is done before August 8th. Mm-hmm. And that, again, as you said, Norm, doesn't distinguish folks for the fact of the coal bill, the grandfathering date issue, but it will, if that moves forward, it will allow you to be grandfathered in later, and it will help you if you get your products on the market now. And when you put your products on the market, you should make sure that the warning labels that you need to have now, disclosures that you may need to have regarding your ingredients, the issues regarding, especially in California, Prop 65, very important, but for the federal statute, the warning labels that will go into effect as of the enactment in August is going to be slightly different right now. You're not federally required to do any of this. But I would recommend that people are very careful how they label their products, what they write, and certainly you want to indicate that if your product is not intended to be used with tobacco products, indicate that now in your marketing, especially if you don't believe your product is a tobacco product as of right now before this goes into effect. But if you have 0 milligrams of nicotine in your e-liquids, you may want to write not intended for use with tobacco products. Mm-hmm. But you definitely want to put as large a portfolio together as you can and show that you are at least attempting to sell it and market it in the stream of commerce. And as you said, it takes one sale. And really, even if you don't sell a product, your attempt to sell it should actually satisfy the fact that you are on the market, available in the stream of commerce.
Excellent. So there's a couple of different people that have been contacting me. One are the people who have existing businesses. And of course, people have a tendency to overreact, and they have a tendency to be a little bit paranoid sometimes. And my position has been, and granted, I have not read all 499 pages, of course, because that would put me to sleep very, very quickly. But the reality of it is that I don't see anything of quote-unquote significance happening for the next 24 months, which means that if you're a brick and mortar shop, no one from the FDA or from your local government is going to be knocking on your door in the next couple of weeks or the next couple of months saying, I'm sorry, but you're out of business as of tomorrow. Am I basically reading that right? So for the most part, we have a 24-month window. I'm not going to say to do business as usual because we absolutely have to clean up our act, but is there any significant or likelihood of anything damaging that's going to be coming down in the next 24 months that people should truly, truly be worried and concerned about?
Well, no, I think from a big picture standpoint, you're correct. And I think there's a lot of panic and a lot of fear, and people should not be afraid. And it just requires knowing what this thing says, understanding it. Reasonable legal minds can disagree as to what it means, but I think everyone's going to agree from a legal standpoint that you have actually the better part of 36 months to comply, if not longer. Because in addition to the August 8th, 2016 deadline, the next two steps that people should be aware of are the 24-month deadline from the effective date of the rule, August 8th, for SE applications. And then there's another deadline 36 months out for pre-market tobacco approval. So to answer your question, no, I don't think the sky's not going to fall on August 8th. You're not going to get someone knocking at your door, most likely on an enforcement. And the FDA has a lot of work left to do still in trying to best understand how to implement these regulations. I will say that there's a prohibition in the rules on free sampling. And if the products are not properly labeled and don't have the proper disclosures regarding ingredients and what we call harmful and potentially harmful constituents, there's health warnings that need to be issued. Those products will now be considered by the FDA as adulterated or misbranded products, and you'll be asked to take them off the market. Also, there's a piece of regulation in the rule that says you can't sell in vending machines unless you're in a facility that retailers ensure that there are no sales to minors. I don't suspect many of us in the industry are selling to outlets that are kiosks and malls, but if you are, that's going to affect your business in a very catastrophic way unless you are in a place that is guaranteeing that there are no minors, like a bar that cards or something along those lines.
Exactly.
But no.
So let me ask you, am I correct in assuming that there will be lawsuits that are going to be up to fight this and litigation? And a lot of people think that this is the end. And as you had mentioned earlier, this is not the end at all. My suspicion is, and understand, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not an attorney. I'm a business guy. And this is not the first crisis I've run into. I've lived through several real estate recessions, mortgage meltdowns, dot-com busts. And so I've seen things like this happen before where suddenly it looks like the world is coming to the end. And maybe the world as we know it might be coming to the end, but that doesn't mean that everything is ready to just curl up into, you don't have to curl into a ball and die. So my suspicion is that there will be some litigation to fight this, and things maybe end up dragging out much, much longer beyond the 36-month period. You know, I have people asking me, is now a good time to start a business? And I have my opinions, but if you put your business strategy hat on and you saw what you saw and what you see coming down the road over the next couple of years, what would you say? Would you tell people to just kind of chill for a while, or would you say that from adversity comes opportunity? Or this is your opinion, mind you. So, you know, we're just going to ask Phil Daman's opinion about how you would view the potential scenario over the next couple of years.
Well, if I take my lawyer hat off, because lawyers are usually risk adverse, and I put my entrepreneurial hat on, where entrepreneurs are more risk loving, I would say that for those companies who have the risk tolerance and the capital to ferret out what the regulations mean and then to comply with them, in the worst case scenario, these regulations are not overturned via litigation and there's no new regulation. And we can talk about that in a few minutes, as I know our firm has been working quite hard for the better part of a year to introduce regulation that would create a separate regulatory framework that distinguishes vapor product from tobacco products. Assuming none of that happens, still a very viable industry with great upsides because you have the opportunity to provide the current products that are on the market, assuming the coal bill advances, to millions and millions of people who, as time goes on, are getting more positive reinforcement with respect to the benefits of vapor products as an alternative or as a consumer product that's perhaps less harmful than smoking.
Perfect.
You know, certainly the report that came out from England last week was very, very positive. As the science gets better and there's more metrics to study, you're going to hopefully see better science that's more meaningful. And I think that brings with it more of a market opportunity for entrepreneurs.
And I agree with you 100% along those lines. You know, what's interesting is that When we talk about the public at large, and this public may be vapors, but more than likely they're not vapors, no one likes to see the restraint of freedom. And I think a lot of people have really not been paying much attention, or they're bogged down with some of the negative media that's out there. I interviewed the gentleman from the state of Indiana from the Who's Your organization, Who's Your Vapes, and this is the statewide organization that has been trying to fight a very onerous, very nasty, very unconstitutional bill in the state of Indiana. And so I asked him, I said, so as you deal with media people, are they paying attention, and is the public at large paying attention? And he said, the media is not paying attention, and they only want to report on the bad stuff, and the public at large is paying not attention at all. But yet, after something happens, that's when they get up in arms and they kind of cry about rallying back for freedom. So I believe that once this siphons down, it's like right now the only people who really give a damn about what happened over the last few days are people in the vaping industry, because obviously we're all concerned for our livelihood and the livelihood of our friends, and literally the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people who are employed in the industry. But when we take Joe Consumer out there and they start acknowledging the fact that a government organization that is now putting something that is proving to be a more healthy alternative than tobacco, and now they're making it more onerous and potentially shutting it down, I actually think that there is going to be a backlash. And I think people who normally don't get involved and who normally don't give a damn about vaping will probably be supportive of the fact that they do not want government intervention against something that is, in fact, tens of millions of dollars of revenue and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of jobs. So am I just taking the glass being a half full position, or do you think that there's some validity to the fact that maybe the public will actually rally to our side of the conversation?
Norm, I don't think you're playing Pollyanna at all. I think you're actually quite intuitively thinking ahead, because as communications for this movement get stronger and we're able to tell our stories more effectively, more compellingly through social media, through video, through film like A Billion Lives, which is coming out in New Zealand, and I'm looking forward to being down there with those guys in a few weeks, actually a few days now. Those kinds of stories and that kind of communication helps reshape the conversation in a more appropriate and, of course, beneficial light for the industry, where people will see that this is an overreaching of government, and unfortunately, it's very harmful because it does not make, at the most simple level, common sense to treat something that is made out of acrylic or wire or e-liquid the same as something that you light on fire and burn.
Yes, of course.
And this was recognized by the Virginia Attorney General in an opinion letter that is now 5 years old that we often circulate to our clients, where they said that vapor products did not have to fall under, at that time, the state law which would have banned the use of vapor products in public under a smoking ban. In a very simple 3-page opinion letter, the Attorney General at the time of Virginia had said, in his opinion, smoking is different than vaping. It doesn't have the same chemical components. It doesn't have the same reactions. It's not the same process when you burn something as opposed to vaping it. So I think you're absolutely correct. But I think what's very important is that we have very, very concentrated efforts and repeated efforts to continue to respectfully engage government, respectfully engage the media, and articulate the conversations that we've been doing for so long. And guys like Greg Connolly do a great job of that. Folks over at what's called the VTA do a great job of that. Safada does a great job of that. I know I work with a coalition of companies called the Coalition for Responsible Vapor Legislation. And, these folks all are doing a great job communicating very similar messages. And there's a good way to bring these people together through a coalition and communicate those messages. But you're absolutely correct. I think this will change, and people will not react kindly to it because it belies common sense. You can save millions of dollars in preventative healthcare costs, actual healthcare costs. You can raise tax revenue from vapor products, but you don't need to tax them as punitively as you do cigarettes. So I agree with you.
Well, I had a conversation with Alex Clark from CASA, the legislative director, and I've been trying to get together with Alex literally for weeks, but due to our conflicting traveling schedules, we're not able to get together until just earlier today. And one of the things that we talked about was the fact that the states have obviously been taking their own initiative in lieu of the FDA, and obviously that might be put on hold for the time being. But this is not the end game. And understand, ladies and gentlemen, that this is not chapter 3 of the trilogy. This is actually the end of chapter 1 of the trilogy. And we have chapter 2 and chapter 3, and probably a continuation is going to be going on. So, I know that you have been talking to a lot of media outlets over the last couple of days, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, Phil, but here we are recording this right after the deeming regs came out, and then we're going to be doing a live Q&A. So some of you who might be listening to the show after we do the live Q&A, I want you to know that Phil has been kind enough to allow us to do a webinar, which is going to be on Thursday. That's going to be the 12th of May. And so what we're going to be doing is that we're going to be reviewing some of the information that we're going to be talking about tonight, but more importantly, we're also going to be inviting people, the public, the people in the vaping community, to also ask their questions now that they have a chance to do that. So, Phil, I guess as we kind of bring this to a close, because again, if you're calling from the East Coast, I'm in Orange County, California right now, and you're normally on the West Coast, I guess, at certain points in the time. So, is there any kind of closing thoughts that you want to leave people with as far as what they could do, what they should be doing right now? Or do we just kind of have to not really take a wait and see, but just kind of be very on top of things and read what's going on?
Sure. And again, Norm, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I think for your listeners and for the vapor community at large, step number 1, this is not something to freak out about. To speak colloquially, this is not the end of days. And as you said before, this is a progression. It's a progression and a process that we've been watching and working on and really studying and being active on since 2011. So this is not new news. It may be news and shocking for folks that are not familiar with it, but this is nothing that's really unexpected. This is something that actually has been planned for, and we expected these things to go this way. But there's ways to manage successfully your businesses within the regulations that have come out. And there's also ways to change our fate. So things to do. First, I would find out who your state congressmen and your federal congressmen and senators are and reach out to them. Because you're going to see parallel regulations, I think, at the state level. And you really need to get engaged and really work with them. And also have your consumers. If you're a shop owner or distributor or manufacturer, you're a business. But congressmen and senators at the state and federal level, they listen to their voters. You have immense power. And we see that now in the presidential elections. We've seen that for a long time in government. The voters really do have a great impact. So you need to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, however you like to communicate, pick up the phone, send a letter. Make it specific, not necessarily just a form letter, but make it specific as to why you feel that these laws improperly regulate vapor products as tobacco. Explain what that means to you. And some key points are that Congress never intended for vapor products to be regulated under the Tobacco Control Act. On top of which, a lot of what's in this legislation is talking about nicotine. So there's ways that we can help advise folks and work together so that we communicate an effective message. Who your elected officials are, 1. Contact them, obviously, and we can help with messaging on that to be of help to the industry. And step 2, be prepared to comply with the regulations by knowing what they say, understanding what they mean, and spend your time really working with those who know what this stuff actually means, as opposed to rumors and gossip, which won't help you and will just make you probably more anxious. But learn what the rules say and how does that impact your business so you can make reasonable business decisions based upon the best information. But there's a pathway to success through legislative reform by getting new regulations in place, new laws in place that are specifically designed for vapor products versus tobacco. And simultaneously, of course, litigation is an option. Litigation is difficult. It's never a slam dunk, but certainly a strategy which tags a litigation effort with a legislative effort to get reform, with a grassroots effort to have consumers rise up and communicate this, is a 3-pronged attack that we should be working on now, and that my office has been working on for several years. And of course, we're welcome to those who want to help contribute in thought, energy, ideas. Certainly, the more folks that are able to help and work together, the better it will be for everyone.
That's awesome. And, you mentioned advocacy. you defined advocacy, and that's about getting involved. And that was one of the things that Alex and I spoke about, which is now Vape Radio show number 76. We spent a lot of time on advocacy, and the reality is that we have a very large contingent. The vaping community and the supporters of vaping are actually much larger than we realize sometimes. So the best way to do it is to, as Phil said, contact your people. Don't rant and rave and don't be irrational and talk about how stupid people are, but just talk about the logical side of why vaping is not considered or should not be considered tobacco. And I think that there's going to come a point when there's going to be a Supreme Court decision that's going to actually define whether vaping is not a tobacco product, because there's so many variables here about what happens when you have tobacco-free nicotine, what happens when you have vaping with no nicotine. So there's a tremendous amount of gray area here, ladies and gentlemen. So the bottom line is that the thoughts we want to leave you with is, do not think that the sky is falling. This is not the end of days, as he said. And there's a lot of potential opportunities out there. And Phil, this is the first time we've had the pleasure of having you on Vape Radio, but hopefully not the last time. And so should someone need more information or wish to get a hold of you, what is the best way to do that, sir?
The best way to reach me is usually by calling the office. You can call our main line, 617-221-3737, 617-221-3737. Of course, feel free to shoot me an email directly. My email is Philip, Phillip, .Daman, Daman, at Daman, Daman, LLP.com. And I'd be more than happy to set a time to speak. And of course, happy to help any way we can. And Norm, thank you again. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and for having me on your show.
Well, my pleasure. I mean, again, I am not an attorney, and even though I'm involved in advocacy, I'm not as involved in advocacy as a lot of other people who are in the business on a day-to-day basis. But one of the things that I can offer is that I am a media voice. As a writer for the largest vaping magazine in the world and as the host of Vape Radio, which is the largest vape radio show in the world, you can believe, my friend, that I'm going to go out there and shout from the high holy heavens all the stuff, both via the vape channels and the non-vape channels. I mean, immediately as this decision came down, I was contacted by the largest newspaper in Orange County, California, and they asked my opinion on how is this going to impact the Orange County vaping community. And when they say vaping community, Orange County, California is ground zero when it comes to e-liquid manufacturers. We have more of them here within a 25-mile radius than probably anywhere in the country. So I was able to get interviewed and get published. And so I'm going to be out there trying to appeal to mainstream media because they're the pundits. They're the ones who have unfortunately been some of our biggest enemies out there because, if it bleeds, it leads, and they love reporting on the battery that blows up every once in a while, and they don't report on the hundreds of thousands of people that are not smoking anymore and are feeling a whole lot better than are able to run marathons. But I'm going to save that soapbox for another day. So thanks for listening, Phil, and thanks for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Vape Radio. Do not go away. We're going to be back in just one moment. I want to assure you that the vape industry is far from dead. Yes, there will be failures and closures, but for anyone that has lived through adverse times, these situations also create great opportunities as well. And I can assure you we will be here to educate, motivate, and entertain you. I wanted to remind you that Vape U III, Vape Shop Master Summit, is launching June 23rd. Visit vapementors.com for more information. Over 4 days and 20 hours, we will be bringing you some of the top thought leaders in the vaping industry. We asked thousands of vape followers what worried them, and we got hundreds of responses. We then drilled it down to just a few areas and then found the best people in the industry to address them. The event will be free, and also recordings of the event will be amazingly affordable for those that can commit early. And last, happy anniversary to Vape Radio, which is now 2 years old. We had our 2-year anniversary in April. And this wraps up Vape Radio show number 77, and thanks for listening. Do you have a topic you'd like to hear, or do you have something to share? Someone you'd like us to speak with? Send us a note to norm@vapementors.com. Before we leave, we also want to offer you a great opportunity. Would you like to get your product, service, or message in front of our targeted vaping audience? Vape Radio is the #1 vape radio show in the world with more than 1.3 million downloads since 2014. We were one of the top 10 business podcasts of 2015 on Podbean and beat up more than 130,000 other shows. For just $750, you get your company integrated within 3 different vape radio shows and we're looking for 2 more advertisers to fill our spots. How about you? Give me a call, send me a note, norm@vapementors.com. And that's it for show number 77. So until next time, vape on.